Guys, we are so blessed today because Mr. Simmons is going to give us a great chapel talk. I am so excited. Hey, let's give it up for Coach Simmons! Woo-hoo! I think you're on that. Did you guys know that
There you go.
Did you guys know that Coach Simmons played football at Fordham University in New York? He was a wide receiver. Isn't that cool? How are you, man?
I'm good.
I'm good.
I can hear myself, so I'm thinking everybody can hear me.
Oh, yeah.
Mr. M, thank you very much for this opportunity. Thank you for calling me Coach Simmons and not Pastor or Preacher Simmons. A lot of people was like, oh, James, you're coming up and you're going to be preaching today. And I am not a pastor. I'm not a preacher. I am a coach, but I am also just a person who loves Jesus. And I love my community. And I love young people. I built my professional career working with young folks from juvenile hall, our mental health systems, our foster care systems here in San Mateo County, in the greater Bay Area in general, all the way down to Monterey County, all the way to Lake County in the Bay Area, working with young people. And I just want to say, before I get into my little speech, I'm not going to keep you long, but sometimes we as adults, we get it half correct when we talk about our young people. We always look at you and we talk to you and about you as if you're just our future. And that's absolutely correct. We pour into you, we love you, we send you, as we do here at Redeemer, because you are our future, because you are valuable, and because we love you. But you are also our present, and you have a great impact on your community, your classmates, your teammates, right today, right now. So don't ever forget that. You have an opportunity to love, to care, and to be kind to someone, and you may never know that it might be their greatest time of needs. So always remember that, okay? You have a great impact right today, okay? So I just wanted to say that, and it's funny because I said all of that without having my cards, because that's just how much I love you guys and how much I think about you guys. But I do have a couple of notes that I want to share with you today. You guys in audio video have been great. You hooked me up with this so I don't have to have a mic in my hand, and also got my slides. I just got two. I just want to share a passage of scripture that I want to read from today, which is going to be the basis of my talk. Okay? So reading from, excuse me, Matthew 22:34 through 40. Hearing that Jesus had silenced the Sadducees, the Pharisees got together. One of them, an expert in the law, tested him with this question: "Teacher, which is the greatest command in the law?" Jesus replied, "Love the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul and with all your mind. This is the first and greatest commandment. And the second is like it. Love your neighbor as yourself. All the law and the prophets hang on these two commandments." So I just want to talk a little bit about community and about loving your neighbor. And that looks a lot of ways, right? We have our next door neighbors that we live next door. We have, neighbors that live down the street and around the corner. But we also have our neighbors in class, and I consider our classmates our neighbors. So I just want to talk a little bit about that. And, one thing that I've learned in my life is that community and neighbors are very important. Without my community, without my neighbors, I would not be who I am today. And a very influential person in my life is my grandmother. My grandmother lived to be 104 years old, excuse me. And I remember, we can go to the next slide, going home to New York. I'm from New York, I'm a native New Yorker, but I've lived half my life here in California. But I remember going home to celebrate my grandmother on her 100th birthday. And this was a picture that the newspaper had took of her celebration. And we were in a church, a little bit smaller than this, but set up like this. And just as many folks are here today, were at my grandmother's celebration from all over our town and all over our community, because she was a person who went out and about and she loved the people. But it's funny, it says neighborhood news. They put it in the section that said neighborhood news. And you might recognize maybe one or two people in that picture. That's kind of me, dead center. That's Mrs. Simmons' Charisma, who's there, holding that little baby. And that little baby is your classmate. That's Tiffany. Tiffany was 6 months old at the time of that. But just want to read the caption for you below. And it says, 100 years of love. Maddie Simmons of Mattituck celebrated her 100th birthday Saturday at Unity Baptist Church in Mattituck. Mrs. Simmons, otherwise known as Mother Simmons, said she contributes her longevity to love. When you love everyone and hold love in your heart, you live, she said. Members of the church described her as a sharp and caring woman who does beautiful work for the church and for the community. You know, every time I tell a little story about my grandmother, who is really, really dear to me, people say, oh, you have longevity in your blood. And I said, yeah, you know, my grandmother lived to be 104 years old. My great-grandmother lived to be 101 years old. But if I'm not as handsome or pretty as she, or as sharp and witty as she, I don't want to be around that long. But she epitomized what it meant to love your neighbor. And well into her 90s, for her church, they would have, bake sales and things of that nature. And as a 90-plus-year-old, my grandmother would always outsell everybody in the church. And she never drove, right? She took 1 or 2 driving lessons back in the day, and she's like, this is not for me. So my grandmother walked everywhere. So she would walk in town, she'd go to all of the offices, and she'd get people to sign up for chicken dinners. And then once she got a little bit older, she just got on the phone and she called them, and they'd love to support my grandmother throughout the years. So I just wanted to share a little bit about love and about loving your neighbor, and someone who is recognized for that, and someone who's had a great influence on my life, and is a major reason why I just love to be out and about in the community, sharing, helping, and living what God has asked us to live. Okay, you can keep that picture up. I don't have any more pictures, but I feel my grandmother's presence, so if you can keep that up, that'd be helpful for me. So now just a little bit of audience participation by show of hands as I go into a little deeper. How many people in here have had to move in their life from one home to another home? A lot of you. Have you had to, you can put your hands down, have you had to move from a different city to another city? Mm-hmm. Have you had to start a new school and make new friends? Right? So I'm going to talk about a time in my life when I had all of those things above, and you all will probably be able to relate a little bit with me, okay? So when I was 10, excuse me, I had to move. My mom and dad wanted us to move to a different location. It was actually on eastern Long Island. I used to live in Jamaica, Queens, which is really, really close to Manhattan. And you know, you guys will look at your geography and look at all of that stuff. But I used to live really, really close to Manhattan. So I'm a city boy down at heart. And I was 10 years old. I had to move to Long Island, which is totally, totally different than where I had grown up and what I was used to. I was used to playing out on concrete courts and streets and things of that nature. As a 10-year-old, I didn't even know what the game of soccer was, because that's not what we played. We played kickball like you play. We played stoop ball. Does anybody know what stoop ball is? Okay, so we played that, but it was just a whole different way of living and life for me, And I remember the first day of school, things did not get off to a good start. I remember on my first day of school as a 5th grader, getting on the school bus, and I was crying. You know, I missed everything that was familiar to me. I had to make all of these new friends, and it was difficult. And I remember the individual who was a part of me going home crying. And something changed as weeks and weeks went by. This young man, his name is Billy. And Billy was the only child, and Billy had a lot of energy. Billy had a lot of energy. He could run for days and he would not be tired. So I think a lot of his energy had to do with his excitement of a new classmate, me being overwhelmed by his energy, and it just didn't go well for me. But unbeknownst to our teacher, she partnered Billy and I together to be math partners. And over time, Billy and I, we became close friends. We got to know each other, and we built a relationship. And I would come to find out that Billy lived right around the corner from me. I could literally hop on my bike and go straight, make one turn and another turn, and that was where Billy's house was. He was my closest classmate, and he was my neighbor, and I didn't know it. So Billy and I spent a lot of time together, and we really helped each other in lots of ways. As I said, Billy was the only child. I had brothers, so he didn't have many folks at home to play with. So we were really, really good together. And we spent a lot of time, a lot of things that I do today, I can look at and say, I remember doing that when I was at Billy's house. Sometimes we'll have dinner in my home, and we'll turn on the Nature Channel or Disney and watch the animals and things like that, and we'll talk about it. And I remember as a 10-year-old, 11-year-old, having dinner with Billy and his family, and we would do that. We would watch the Nature Channel, and we would watch the Discovery Channel, and we would learn lots of different things and eat and talk. And that's something that my family and I, we still do today. But Billy and I, again, we spent lots of time together. We rode our bikes, and I want to share this story because it really, really meant a lot to me. And I didn't know at the time how important it was, but I'm sharing it with you, and this story happened 37 years ago. So all you mathematicians out there, if you add 37 and 10, probably tell you how old I am, okay? So Billy got a brand new bike, and Billy was really, really, he just loved his bike, right? His first bike, and he would keep it so clean, and he would buy new parts for it, and he just loved this bike. He took so good care of this bike. And on his birthday, he was blessed by his parents, and he got a new bike. And this bike was chrome, it was shiny, and he just took care of this bike just like he took care of his old bike. But one day, you know, we were together, and he said, James, come here, come here. I was like, hey, what's up? And he said, hey man, you know I got this new bike, right? And I want to know if you'd like to have my old bike. And I looked at him, I said, whoa. And I just remember how much Billy loved this bike. And he said, yeah, man, I want to give you this bike if you want it. And I remember, just like it was yesterday, I looked at Billy and I said, but I don't have anything to give to you. And I remember saying, I don't have anything to give to you. And without hesitation, Billy looked at me, he said, but James, you've given me your friendship. From 11-year-old. As I talk about it now, it makes me emotional because it's had a great impact on me. And that's what community is, and that's what neighbors are. It's loving your neighbor, sharing the good things that you have, helping someone out in their time of need. And that's something not just my 100-year-old grandmother can do. But remember what I said, you all have impact. You all have the power to make a positive impact on somebody's life. And it could be the person that's sitting right next to you. So always remember that. Always walk in that. that you can make a difference today. And with that, I just want to say again, thank you, Mr. M. I want to thank you all for your attention. I told you I wouldn't keep you long, but I think that that's a really powerful message that you all can take something from today and know that you can make a difference in the world that God has called you to make a difference in. Thank you, guys. Thank you, girls. Thank you, moms and dads.